Consistently, I'm going to continue mucking around with our rarangitake. So I think we'll stay with number 9. It seems to be a good number today. Reminds me of that man in black with number 9 on his back on the weekend at Awesome Game. So we're going to go to 9.3, the Newhanga Kāpiti Community Centre updates, and we're going to welcome More and Hara.
And Dave. Is it Dave from...
And Dave, you're going to join this conversation, I hear?
Yeah, is the room there? Or...
All right. And Naughty. This is the part of the people partnerships that's been in here.
Oh, say it again?
This is part of the people in partnerships projects. That's why my name's there.
Okay. Tēnā koutou, kei a koutou te wā. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to working through your update.
Kia ora koutou. Ko Morag Taumalia Tāne toku ingoa. So I'm the Principal Advisor in the People and Partnerships Group, and the Newhanga Kāpiti Community Centre sits as a project within our group and has a bit of a special place in our heart. Our Connected Communities team, of which Noriye Parata is part of. We're helping to manage and facilitate that centre up until it closed in 2021. So we came with an update on the 1st of August around what we were looking to do going forward with the community centre, and we've just come back to update you on where we've got since then. So in terms of what we're looking at the moment, we've engaged Mobius to undertake a needs assessment, and the purpose of that needs assessment is really for us to understand what changes there's been in the social and community sector, and what the community is really requiring from a space going forward. Issues like COVID obviously have had a massive impact, so we want to make sure that whatever we're looking at in terms of options going forward are going to be able to meet the needs and the aspirations of the community. So that's what the purpose of that needs assessment is. You'll have hopefully all received an invitation to a workshop on Thursday at 11 o'clock. So that's when Mobius will be having a chat and doing a workshop to understand from your perspectives as well what you're seeing as voices for the community, and just really wanting to bring that in at an early stage of the needs assessment. We're also looking to have a meanwhile space set up by the community centre. Noriye is the one that's really the creative person behind this, and it's supposed to be a space that helps to bridge the gap between the centre not being there and to re-engage the community and previous users of the facility back with the space and get people to reconnect with each other, help to bring organisations back together as well. We'll look to have some events as well, and just a space as well to provide information and to get some organic feedback from the community too about what their aspirations are going forward. And the other part of what we're looking at is a structural assessment. So there's an engineering company that's been going into the building to carry out further assessments to understand what the potential is for that building going forward. Whether there are, whether it's going to be okay to continue as a building and would it be able to meet the needs, whether there's any changes that could happen internally, or whether it needs to be a new building in a new space. So that's where we're at the moment. I'm not sure if Dave or Noriye want to add any more. They're welcome to, or we could just answer questions.
Kōrero mai. If there's further input from our staff, please feel welcome to add to the update, and then I'll ask for any questions.
Both go.
Sorry. Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Noriye Parata toku ingoa. So I'm part of the Connected Communities team, and I'm helping as an advisor in these spaces. I really want to talk about the community centre and the space and the meanwhile space, that we really want to make sure that we capture the stories and tell the story about the the significance of the people there and the people that used it in the past and in the future. So I feel like around this table, we just really need to encapture those stories. And so it would be really cool to work alongside, especially Te Atiawa and our Arts Confederation around what that looks like and what that looked like for you before. Thank you.
Any questions? Any comments regarding the update?
Sorry, I wasn't here on the first, when you had the last update. So I just wanted to see, was the concept design shared with the group at that stage, or is?
Oh, so there is no concept design. We're not at that stage yet. Are you talking about the meanwhile space?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, so
Yeah.
that's just been a work in progress since then. We're happy to share where we've got to, if you'd like, with the group. It's a flexible space. There's looking to have a container with information in it. Naughty, I might want to jump in here. I don't want to do all the talking, but garden pods, accessible garden pods as well, seating areas, relaxation areas, some activities as well, hopefully a ping pong table, just some cool things, but in particular the information that, as Naughty was just saying, needs to talk about the history of the land, the history of that centre, how it came about, the community fundraising efforts that went into it, the gifting of the name, then how it operated as well, and kind of how we've got to where we are, and then wanting to know what the aspirations are going forward. So it's a space to really just bring people back. But happy to share that concept if you do want to see it.
Yeah, that would be very cool. It sounds excellent. I'm just wondering also when is it expected to begin the installation? Talks about this year.
Yeah, so hopefully some of the first parts of it will be taking place over the next couple of weeks. We're looking to just organically start introducing the different elements as they're available. So yeah, over the next few months it should be seeing it up and running, and we're looking to use some of the events that are already happening, like Parks Week's happening next week, so maybe having the event as part of that, just with the Kāpiti school. And then the Strawberry Festival obviously is happening, so using that as a place where people are already going to be by the centre to try and reintroduce them with the space.
Okay. Well, given that, I don't know if we'd want to, if others want it to come back here, or if we can just go have a look if it's already going to be going up. Yeah. I mean, in our own time ourselves, go and have a look.
We'd be very happy to take everybody on a lekoi down there during one of your Whakaminenga sessions if you wanted to, or we could do it outside of that as well.
Thank you.
Kia ora, just a copy, and thanks for bringing this. So I'm just noting that we've got one about the library and another agenda item about the library. You talked about the story and the history, which is really awesome, and I'm sure Te Ateo will be all over that. But when we talked about the Waikanae Library, we talked about Te Ao Māori and what we'd like to see in the library, and we talked a little bit about a living library, so that our library is not in a building. Our library is all around us. So when you're thinking, and I'm sure the experts will think about all this, but when you say talking about the story and the history, that's a real opportunity for that place to be a living library, and then to link that story into the libraries to be told. So it's a real opportunity to do that, because that's the whole thing, is that everything we do can have a lesson from it, and we can learn something from every building that we have, as opposed to them all sitting in a book on a library shelf. So just that opportunity to link them, that's all.
Can I just ask that the meeting reflects the suggestion and perhaps the opportunity that we should take to consider a site visit, whether that's done independently or whether we decide to caucus to do that. I think it's worth just noting. just in terms of reporting again, can I just ask that we include tangata whenua considerations in the updates or in the reporting procedure that we're following coming back to the table? Item 17 in the report makes reference to the Tatiawa Town Centre Working Group. Tangata whenua considerations would signal to me certainly the need to consider expanding on that if that was helpful. And for that matter, it should then also encourage responses from Ngāti Toa, responses from Ngā Hapu if that was going to help inform our reporting. So just wanting to maintain that consistency in the way that our staff are constructing our reports and the way in which they are informing the table regarding matters that are on our agendas. So just asked if you give that some thought. And again, that will just help create that consistency that I'm seeking. Any other questions or any other comments? I welcome Darren to our hui as well. Ngā mihi kia koe.
Through the chair. Actually, not in relation to just in relation to the last comments you made there, Mr. Chair, with regards to the reports. I just do note that these are updates or reviews, not reports per se. I note that we had a report at the beginning, which did have that format. So we just might need to maybe have a look at that format for review or updates as such, because I think they have a different approach, should we say, with regards to things. But it'll be good to get some clarity around that. Not necessarily today, but it would be good to just clarify that.
What I'm suggesting is that whether it's a report on update or reviewing things, that we're purposely stimulating the opportunity for tangata whenua considerations to be visible. And what that should do, from my perspective, is also stimulate a reaction or response from the Art Confederation regarding the review, the report, or the update that we're receiving. So I'll take the direction from our manawhenua representatives where you feel that's helpful or not, but my personal view, Martin, is that consistency is what I'm looking for, and it then creates potentially further conversations with the report writers and with manawhenua as we're working towards an update or a review or a report that is coming through to Whakaminenga. So I'm comfortable for advice, further advice on that, and considerations regarding that, but the key for me is finding that consistency. Having said that, I acknowledge the work that's happening here. I think it is exciting, and I think it's important that that we respectfully note the update, and I'd like for that to be formalised. So I'm happy to move that we receive the update today, and I'm asked for a seconder. Kirsten. There are no other questions or points for clarification. Thank our staff for the work that you're doing. Thank you for the update. Thank you for the engagement that we are seeing from the information you're generating. I'll put the motion all in favour, say aye. Contrary? Carried. Kia ora. We're going to stay with 9.4 and move into 9.5 following that. So let's take item 9.4. Morag, we have you helping us with that update as well. Hara, you're here. Are there any other staff I should acknowledge? Yeah, Dave as well. Okay, cool. So, and Mike, tēnā koe Mike, good to see you. Kei a koutou, we're in your hands.
Look, yeah, this is a very brief update. Just we wanted to share with you the progress and the next steps, I guess, and some timeframes for the Waikanae Library and Community Hub moving forward. So I'm not going to read through them, but happy to take any questions. So they're all listed in the post of the timeframes and what we're doing. So.
I don't want to minimise the work that's actually going on here, which I'm sure is not reflective of an A4 sheet of paper with some words on it. So I'm going to ask staff if they could bring that up, just so that there's clarity regarding the timelines or the timeframes that are being reported back to us today. So if that could conveniently be brought up on the screen. When we're saying early 2024, is there an indication you can give about when that might be at this point? I mean, is it before we, is it 1 January or? Because I could be busy that day.
Fair enough. Look, when we run through it, so we've undertaken the building condition assessment. We've done the walkthrough of that, and we're waiting on the report to come back.
Yeah.
The internal strip out, we are preparing an RFP to go out to the market. So requesting some proposals, and once we get that back, we hope to start that, not 1 January because people are on leave, but shortly thereafter is our aim, depending on workload. And similarly with the concept design, we're hoping for that to be tendered and let early in the new year, and then work on that we expect to take 2 to 3 months. So hopefully around end of March, April, we're looking at that, and then obviously there's the check-in with the community and then detailed design following that. So hopefully have that all done by the end of the year and start get a tender out for the construction, begin the construction early 25.
I think given the brief update, it would be helpful again to note that I guess the minutes from today's week can reflect and record those responses. Just as an example, the November 23 step 1, the assessment, when do you think logically that would be available to be reported on?
We're hoping to have it in by the end of November.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I don't think we were going to necessarily report on that back to council. It will depend a lot on what it says.
Yeah. So again, I'm just thinking in terms of timelines, this is helpful, but if we can get along the way, if we get more definitive and identifiable dates and times, that would be helpful, I guess. I suspect that's what's going to happen anyway, but just, I think it's important just to know what steps are being taken and how does that factor, I guess, our response and our support and our contribution to this pretty important kaupapa. Happy to take further questions and comments. Kirsten?
Oh, kia ora. I might be a bit behind on the information that's been presented in the last few months, so forgive me if I'm asking you to repeat information. I was just wondering, is this looking at just refurbishing the old building? Is that what the new library is where it's going to be?
So this project is singularly about refurbishing the old library, although there is a work stream that economic development are looking at Waikanae Town Centre as a whole and what we can do with number 9 as well.
Number 9?
The current pop-up library building.
So following on from the council decision, where it was decided that it would be just the old library that would be refurbished, It was then noted, obviously, that there was a lot more conversations that needed to happen, though, around those opportunities in Mahara Place and Waikanae Town Centre, and in particular the conversations that we've been having with Atiawa Ki Whakarongotai. And so that conversation is being led by Darren Grant in Economic Development, and this one is just focused on ensuring that the old library, that there's movement there.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Kia ora, I don't have any questions, but because I know the workload that the team's put into the library, and it's been back here for a few iterations. So I just think the residents will be happy to see it going ahead. And it will be exciting to see if, I know the decision when we went back to try and think about the wider implications and whether to go big, and I know that was kind of bandied around the table, and so to land where we have was good, because it takes into consideration the new idea of what a library is. And it's more than a learning centre. It's more than what it was in our day. Rock up, be quiet, and get a book off the shelf. And so the social needs in the area are much larger now than what they would have been when this project started. So I would say it's in line with everything that we're hearing. So for me, I'm just keen to see it get started, and I'm sure the team is too. So kia ora, ngā mihi.
Kia ora. Yeah, I just wanted to ask in this context and kind of appropriate for today. I see that it's called the new Waikanae Library there. What's the plan for rolling out the new name for the facility? And when's that going to start to be used and celebrated by everyone?
I think that's a question for Te Ariawa to answer. It's sitting with them, and we've said we're open to them giving us a name when they feel the timing's right.
Okay, so a reminder that sits there as an action.
Just one other piece of information I'll just share is that we are looking to work closely with Te Ariawa on this, and when we undertake the design RFP, we're hoping that we will have someone from Te Ariawa sitting at the table with us going through that process.
Sorry, could I respond to that? I would hope throughout the design phase, not just when you, yeah.
So we've been talking with the Atiawa Town Centre Working Group as well around this, and so in terms of the project going forward, obviously, similar to Te Newhanga as well, looking to have somebody at the governance level, and as well as on the project group if there's capacity for that too.
Well, thank you, Murray. Thank you, Dave, for the update. Valuable asset that you're working on for not only the community of Waikanae, but of the district of Kāpiti. So thank you for your valuable work and the contributions that you're making. Appreciate it. I suggest our minutes reflect that we've received the update today. Do we need to formalise it, or are we just comfortable to receive the update? I suggest our minutes reflect it, yeah? Halfway. Thank you. So, Yolanda. 9.5, I'm going to go off the running sheet I have. So Mike, Yolanda, who else am I welcoming? Gareth and Huani. Hara mai koutou. 9.5, reserve management plans classification update.
Kia ora, everybody. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. As I mentioned, I have Yolanda, Hoani and Gareth with me. Reserve management plans aren't the sexiest sounding subject, but actually these are highly important with respect to land and our awa and what happens on those. So Yolanda's got a short presentation she's going to run you through, and then we'll be happy to take any questions, Mr. Chair. Kia ora.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for that introduction, Mike. And thank you all for having us back to provide another update on where we're at with our reserve management planning process. We previously spoke to you earlier in the year. Since then, we've had our first hui with our iwi partners that we're co-designing this approach with. That hui was held back in August, and we had representatives from all three of our iwi partners at that hui. At the hui, we had a discussion about what an RMP was and what it should be. And we discussed establishing a shared vision for how we're going to look after the whenua that we're in the privileged position to be looking after on behalf of everybody. Most importantly, at that hui, we shared some really good kai. So it was a successful day. All three iwi representatives expressed a willingness to be engaged in that process and could see the benefits of preparing an RMP, as well as the significant amount of mahi that has to go in to be done before we can actually start the formal process of preparing an RMP. And that brings me to our update today on the classification process. Just waiting for some slides to pop up. So I'll continue while we're waiting for that to come up. As you know, all of reserves held by council are subject to the provisions in the Reserves Act. The Reserves Act requires two things for every reserve. One, it must be held as a reserve, so either be declared as a reserve or deemed as a reserve by nature of the way it came into being held by council. The second, and where we're at to talk about today, is the classification process. So every reserve must be classified for its primary purpose. And you can't actually prepare a legally binding reserve management plan until you've classified sites for their primary purpose. And there's a good reason for that, is if you don't know the values for which you're managing the whenua, it's very difficult to write a management plan which sets out some requirements, responsibilities, objectives, and those types of things about that whenua. So, oh, we had it. So the Reserves Act actually stipulates what the different categories are that we can classify our reserve land as. It's worth bearing in mind this is a pretty outdated piece of legislation. It's 1977, so some of the terminology that we see in the Reserves Act probably isn't the type of way that we like to refer to things today, so bear that in mind. But we are required nonetheless to classify each of our reserves under one of the primary purposes set out in the Reserves Act. So they are the different classifications there, which you can see across the top. The important thing is the Reserve Act has different requirements and different legislative requirements for each of the different types of reserves. For example, a nature reserve, does not allow public access, whereas all of the others, the intention is for public access to be provided for. So there's a few little quirks around what can and can't be done depending on how you classify the reserve. So RMPs, reserve management plans, are required to be prepared for all of the reserve categories apart from local purpose reserves, which are, it's a bit more flexible, and that council can decide if they want to prepare an RMP for that. So moving on to the next slide. Thanks, Hawane. As part of our information gathering and research project that we've been doing on all of our reserves, we have managed to determine most of where our reserves sit in terms of how and whether they are classified or not. So as you can see there, we've got slightly over 100 parks and reserves, what we refer to as properties. 23 of those are classified. However, there may be some work to be undertaken to establish whether that classification, which in some cases was carried out quite some time ago, is still appropriate for today's values of that land. We've got 12 which are partially classified. An example of that is Waikanae Park, where the vast majority of the parcels that make up Waikanae Park are classified as recreation reserve, but there are some parcels that have been added to that park in subsequent years that have not yet been classified. So almost fully classified, but not quite. So we've got a bit of tidying up to do there. We've got a couple of unknowns. It's a tricky process trying to determine whether a site that has come to us before the establishment of the Reserves Act is actually deemed classified under the Act. So we're doing a lot of historic unravelling, looking at historic titles and research. So currently I think we have a couple that we're getting some further advice on. And then as you can see, a large majority of our reserves currently administered by council are currently unclassified. So in order to, I guess, prepare a reserve management plan, we've got a bit of work to do. So if we can move to the next slide, Hawani. This is essentially a bit of a snapshot, I guess, of our projected work. The process to classify a reserve is set out in the Reserves Act, and it accumulates in a Gazette notice, and then we register it on the title with LINZ. There's a couple of processes that could follow depending on how the reserve came to council. So we have what we've termed the fast-track classification process, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But essentially, that's a snapshot of where we're currently sitting. Estimated timeframe. So you'll see on here, sorry, it might not be that easy to see, but I think you've got a copy of it. There are 3 distinctive line items on our timeframe. One of those is the classification process. The other one is actually preparing the reserve management plan for sites as they are classified. And then the third one is the ERMP, which I'll explain in a little bit. Probably the main thing to note here is the intention is to prioritise at our second hui that we have coming up in February with our iwi partners, what might be the higher priority sites for classification, and discuss perhaps co-designing a methodology for determining the best process to classify that whenua. Once we have sites classified, once we've gone through the process to get that done, then we'll develop an RMP for each of those cohorts. So the intention is a slightly staged approach where we classify the first cohort of sites along with sites that we already believe to be appropriately classified, prepare an RMP for those while we're classifying the less priority sites, I guess. Hopefully making that a lot smoother and a lot easier is the development of the ERMP, which is also on that line. So what we're looking at doing is developing an ERMP using the same platform that we use for the district plan. The idea being that the information that we then provide is not only a lot more user-friendly and accessible to our stakeholders in our community, but also makes our process a whole lot easier when we start adding in additional reserves into the RMP. So we understand it will be the first ERMP in New Zealand if we can get it out in a timely fashion, so we're pretty excited about that. Okay, next steps. So where we're at currently is we're completing our property reviews. As I mentioned, this is time consuming, involves historic title searches, and in some cases we're having to take some legal advice to make sure that we are as certain as we can be before we go into our next hui with our iwi partners on what the status of the whenua is. Obviously, I mentioned we have a hui with our iwi partners again in February. At that, we will be looking at the classification process, what's an appropriate methodology, and essentially co-designing a way forward for classifying those sites. We'll continue working on the ERMP platform with Isovist, so to turn something that was designed for a district plan, E-plan, into a reserves management plan, E-plan. So given that hasn't been done before, there's a bit of work going on there as well at the same time. Developing a consultation and notification strategy. So there does need to be a discussion at some stage, I would suspect after our next hui with iwi, to make some decisions about the appropriate level of consultation and notification. Liaise with stakeholders, essentially the Department of Conservation for Crown-owned land that's managed or controlled and authorised by KCDC. And I think we have one last slide. So this is for anyone who is interested in process. I'm a bit of a process geek. It's essentially my brain dump of the process that we need to follow to classify a site. I have made a few tweaks to it since this one was put up to to make it a little bit softer around the decision on public notification. Essentially, that's probably a discussion for another day, but I have put that there for you to look at. So that's essentially our update. I'm happy to take questions.
Just on the estimated timeline, it's given a date, on the estimated timeline, page 93 of the slide, it's saying 9th of January, iwi classification meeting, but in the report, it's saying February. Am I looking at the right reference?
I think that 9th line is slightly forward of the iwi classification green square. So we do have a date set down for February. I'm not sure I know the exact day, but we have got that penciled in.
Thank you for that.
And it is in February.
Cool. Any other questions,
All right.
comments?
Thank you for bringing this here today and sharing with us. I've got a few questions. First one, I'm interested to know who are the people that you meet with.
Sure.
Oh, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. So we meet with Luke from Ngāti Toa,
Oh, yeah.
Caleb from Nahapu, and Mal from Tiatiawa.
Cool. Tino pai. That's a good group. I'm wondering if we can get a list of the ones that aren't yet classified yet, and the ones that are classified. Like, I had a little look on the website, tried to find some information on the maps, and it has the currently classified ones. Hoping that's all right, that we could get an earlier look at it.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem at all. We actually have a spreadsheet that we developed for our iwi partners, so they can start to have a look at what sites we're talking about, so we can certainly provide that.
Excellent. And just to share with you, one of the reasons why it would be good to look at it is we're looking at places that we might be able to develop housing, and there might be other opportunities for iwi to be involved in things, and I'm not sure how that all works with land that's currently sitting as a reserve. The potential, I see there's a potential that it could be exchanged for something, or maybe used for something else. So we'd like to be able to explore those opportunities. There's a fair bit of work gone into the Waitangi Tribunal hearings, and we're acutely aware that there's a shortage of land available to us for settlements and future use. So yeah, it's good to have this in front of us today so we can have a look into that sort of thing.
Sure, I think also in our books there is some land that isn't held as reserve, which obviously as part of this review into those titles is becoming more and more obvious to us, but we can certainly provide you some information around that.
Cool. And I guess just a question from someone that doesn't know too much about this, but there's these sort of random sections, empty sections within a built-up area in Otaki, and I wonder if they have been given to the council by developers when they created these subdivisions, and if they're in this mix.
I think mostly land that's come to us recently, and I would say probably in the last 10 years, if it's come through a subdivision, will be held as reserve land. We may not have done something with it yet, so it may still look like it's bare land, but we can certainly, that will be land that is held as reserve land will be on the spreadsheet that I can provide to you. If it's not on that, chances are it's not reserve land, and if it's council owned, it's sitting somewhere else.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
But if you have any specific questions about specific parcels of land, just let us know. We're happy to have a look for you.
There we go. Just a quick one, and I've forgotten. You've given me the date before. How long does the RMP last for? Like, when is it? What's the review?
The RMPs need to be reviewed every 10 years.
10 years, yeah. And just around, because I know you've got iwi in that working group, but in terms of comms and engagement, because a lot of the time it's communicating the stuff to our hapu and our whānau that can become difficult. And that's where the risk lies when we put things into a management plan and it hasn't gone through the full, comms and engagement. So is there any support for iwi in that space to make sure that their engagement with whānau and hapu is really, like this really good solid engagement there, rather than leaving it on the shoulders of the one or two that sit in the group?
Yeah, I think the answer there is we're essentially leaving it up to them to manage their how they go back to the iwi and hapu and provide that information back to us.
Yeah, okay. So maybe we could look at some support around that, have a discussion. I might raise that with Caleb in the working group. Kia ora, that's all.
Oh, kia ora, through the chair. Yolanda, thanks for that. Is there a strategy in place with council to look at or have a vision for future parks with the intensive developments that are going on here? Do we have a strategy to look to the future?
Yep, for sure we do. It's contained in the open space strategy, which was ratified by council last year, which has a section on exactly that, meeting the future demands of the district based on growth.
Okay, that's great. And we have numerous ecological sites around the district too. Does that factor in? Do you look after those? Do you just a lot of them, or most of them, are privately owned, aren't they? So do you keep an eye on them? And
yeah, they have been in the past, but we are acquiring an increasingly large amount as developers don't tend to want to look after large eco sites themselves. Obviously, they can't be developed for anything. So we are getting an increasing amount of environmental biodiversity type whenua that we're putting into the portfolio. So that's certainly also contained in the open space strategy, our visions there. The flip side of that is we need to be good, responsible landowners as well. And those types of sites don't just sit there and do well on their own. There's often pest management and things like that. So it's making sure we've actually got the budget, even if the land is gifted to us by a developer or we pay a minimal price for it. It's the ongoing maintenance budgets that we really have to consider when we take on more land.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, one notable one, very successful one, is the escarpment at Old Taki, which has taken off really well, and with the possum control too, the trees have regenerated over about 20 years, and it's been very successful, in partnership with DOC, Greater Wellington, who put the possum stations there. And I love that flow chart. Yes, I fiddle with aeroplanes sometimes, and how one goes, it's broken. Did you fiddle with it, and did you tell anyone? Thank you.
Thanks.
Huri wai, kōrero mai.
Kia ora. Sorry, just looking at the, I think, timeline that's on page 93. I had two questions and sort of one comment. The first question was, could you please explain more about what the ERMP is?
Yeah, sure. So the ERMP, basically, the idea is that we don't just want to produce a document that sits as a large PDF or a number of large PDFs that are really difficult to access information. So from a user perspective, we're wanting something to look more like the district plan. When you can search up a park, you can click on it, and it will take you to the relevant policies, objectives, rules and regulations for that specific property, rather than having to trawl through a large document and find that information. It also is a quite useful tool for us with the way that we plan to phase the RMP process in as sites are classified. It allows us then to add in other sites into a wider RMP policies and objectives overview type document without creating another PDF, I guess. So I don't know if you're familiar with the district e-plan, it's worth having a play with that. We are using the same provider for for preparing the ERMP, so it will be the same platform, and we're looking to work with them to tweak something so it works for our needs and the needs of our stakeholders, I guess.
Awesome, thank you. And then in terms of the second question I had, I note from the estimated timeline on page 93 that you've got the estimated around February, your next iwi classification meeting on February for that first. I'm assuming the way I've read that timeline is that you're doing them in two stages, right? Like your first stage is you're going to do your first RMP notice somewhere in the first quarter of 2024, and then what it looks like your second RMP, or stage 2 RMP, will start in maybe mid 2025. But assuming if I've read that right, you've got two parts there where you've got, say, the iwi one part where you've got iwi classification in February, and then it looks like a second type of that same, classifying the reserves somewhere in the early part of 2025. I'm just assuming that iwi will also have an opportunity to be involved in the classification process there, as well as feeding into the public notification of the RMP, or
Yeah,
the stage 2 RMP.
We're co-designing this approach with iwi, so I'd take this timeline probably as draft until we've had that February hui. It may be more than two chunks of classification that we have to have, and we don't want to make any decisions on that until we've gone back to iwi. The idea is that next workshop we'll discuss this with them. We'll talk about whether it's appropriate to prioritise sites for classification as opposed to try and doing them all at once, and we'll have those sorts of discussions then. I mean, it could be that we have 3 or 4 cohorts of classifications going through the process. This was really just to show how that will work together.
Oh, right. No, thank you. And the only sort of comment on myself would be just sort of following the earlier commentary about the, especially for relations in Ngāti Raukawa and Te Atiawa who are going into the settlement negotiations process. Of course, a number of iwi who do end up in treaty settlements do end up, especially more recently, going into either the administration, management, or transferring some of those responsibilities from council over to iwi. And a lot of them, what I've found around the country is that they have sometimes taken on quite costly reserves in terms of the ongoing maintenance and administration of those reserves. So I suppose within those conversations that you're having with the iwi technicians, I think it'd be also useful as part of that list that sort of says, these are the ones that are going through, or whatever's prioritized, sort of maybe and useful for council as well, I guess, to kind of see what is the actual ongoing costs to administer those reserves.
Yeah, and we have reasonably good information on the costs to administer a reserve going forward. Obviously, it's improving all the time. It's also getting more expensive all the time.
Yes.
But we are certainly having resourcing conversations with iwi as we work through this for all the stages, including these initial stages in terms of the workshops.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all for me.
Any other comments or questions for our team? This is going to be the broken record again, but tangata whenua considerations, I just note your response, Kim, and I think, my immediate reaction is, okay, let's make sure that we're not just simply relying on what's coming back to this table, to appreciate the work that's happening at an operational level by those experts who we have attached to TAIO. And that's why I think tangata whenua considerations should be seen as the vehicle for ensuring that there's an opportunity between now and the next meeting, or the next update, or the next review, or the next report, for those representatives that are sitting at the table to go and do that due diligence, to go and have that kōrero with their own iwi, with their own consultant, so that we're satisfied we're not having to rely solely on the report that comes back to the table through our staff. It's just encouraging us to ensure that those lines of communication are visible just as much as what we're reading here. So appreciate the work that's been done here. And I think I can appreciate the task of having to project what's sitting in front of us, It looks extremely complex to me, but obviously there's an absolute need for us to invest our time and energy on matters that relate to whenua. That's probably the most critical thing that I'm reminded of having had this update today, is we have a very important historic connection to our whenua, and for the moment we have the responsibility of exercising our kaitakitanga to ensure that we're on top of this, that we're maintaining good lines of communication, and that no doubt will cross over beyond just a operational level. I imagine at the governance level there's a need to ensure that we're doing the best we can as well to inform our own mandated iwi organisations about the significant work that's being undertaken here. And I do recognise the point you made, Huriwai, about the future that that Te Awa Ki Whakarongotai and Ngāti Raukawa are going to be pursuing in terms of their future settlement, which will have a direct relationship to this work that's going on here. So thank you to our staff for the work that you're doing, and I value the report. I think the slideshow was great. Thank you. There is a recommendation. The recommendations are on page 87. We note the progress with the development of the Reserve Management Plan, RMP, and the classification work required to be undertaken prior to notifying Council's intent to prepare a Reserve Management Plan. Can I ask that we move to adopt that recommendation? Do I have a mover, Kim? Do I have a seconder? Martin? I'll put the motion. All in favour say aye. Contrary? Carried with thanks. Well, that concludes a significant item, nine on the agenda. I'll take us back now to item 7. Kōrero hau mō ngā iwi. Iwi updates. Are there any iwi updates from our manawhenua representatives? Kai a koutou te wā.
Oh, kia ora. I guess to add on from the last hui, actually no, we have a iwi treaty settlements is number 8, right? I'll leave that for them. Yep. I could just share with you that we did have made some progress on our Otaki Hapori Reo project recently, and we were involved. We did a little initiative to work with local businesses to encourage them, support and encourage them to be involved in the Te Wā Tuku Reo Māori, or the Māori Moment initiative that was on, I think it was the 14th of September at 12 o'clock, where everyone around the country is invited to just have a moment where they're promoting, I suppose, or engaging in Te Reo Māori. So we approached a number of local businesses and we had excellent feedback. I think everyone we approached was really keen. Some weren't available at that particular time, but most engaged. So we had a number of Te Reo Māori speakers go out to those places and be available for the staff to support them with any questions they might have had about phrases they wanted to use, and then we're in their space for about an hour to support them, and sometimes if they wished us to engage with some of their customers. So yeah, it was pretty cool. It was positive, and we think it will be a good thing to expand on next year, even though it's only for a short time in the day. There are some opportunities to help the businesses feel more comfortable and confident in doing that on the day. So for next year, we're thinking about how we can better support them in the lead up, so that they have the phrases and expressions to use on the day without needing to try and figure things out on the day. 14th of September. Oh, is that the right date? It's on the, there's a website that Te Tauta Whiri have set up, and you can go on there and you can see lots of people post little videos of themselves, of what their aspirations are, or what they're doing, or just saying a phrase or singing a waiata. So it was quite cool. It's part of the project that we're doing with the council actually, and supported by DIA. So it did reach out to people that may not otherwise be speaking Te Reo Māori already. So it was quite a bit of engagement with people that are new to it, which was cool. It was good to get, hear their hesitations or interest or excitement, and be able to work through some things with them. So that was cool. Look forward to next year. And then the other thing I was just going to talk about was the storyboards, but I guess I've already shared that with you during the earlier discussion. I could just add to it and say that one of the things we're doing with the storyboards is approaching three of the local kura, where there's whare kura or college age students, and inviting them to be involved in the research and writing and gathering of information phase, and we're quite excited about that. One of the tūmaki or principals of the kura has gotten super excited about it and talked to us about a project that happened out in Upper Hutt, where students held an exhibition of the research they'd undertaken, and then they had a narrative drama where they rolled out a piece of fabric to represent the awa, and then different students got up and spoke about the pā sites along the way in the area, and then others talked about the different key people that then came into the place, and different historical sites or people or events that have happened along the way. And we got a little bit excited about that too, because as he was talking, I could just imagine it happening in Otaki and actually across the district, for people, especially the students, to be talking about these tupuna and allowing them to have an opportunity to share and talk about their connections, and see it as a good opportunity for audiences that are engaging with it to develop connections as well. So we haven't planned for that whole extra piece of work, but we're thinking about how that could happen potentially next year. So that's just a nice little sharing of some of the mahi that's going on. And also pass it over to Kim, as she'd like to introduce Natasha to you.
Kia ora. So I just wanted to introduce Natasha Davis, who's just joined the team. So she'll be helping me with all things admin, which I'm very excited about. She comes to us with a council background. She had years at Purirua City Council, and from Ngati Porou. So welcome Natasha to the table. So she's shadowing me for the week. We haven't had much time in the office, but yeah, so she'll be alongside me, and hopefully you'll get to know her well as she helps us in the team with all our administration duties and that. That's all. Kia ora. Would you like to say anything?
Kia ora.
Huriwai, do you have any update for Ngāti Toa?
Kia ora, not really much from my end. Sorry, I've been Māui for the last couple of weeks. The only thing sort of really to add on would be sort of in the tribal space, there was, I think, 2 workshops held in Porirua, I think, between representatives from NASA and just talking to rangatahi, just to sort of encourage them in terms of this is what's out there, and that, you know, the world is your oyster kind of workshop, just to open rangatahi's eyes to what's possible out there in the world. And in early December this year, there will be our AGM in Ngāti Toa, and I think there'll be there's also currently some nominations going out to fill board seats. Other than that, sort of what else is going on? I guess I'm assuming the upcoming open day at Te Wānau Raukawa has already been discussed. I'm assuming in some form or another. I'm actually kind of excited myself just to sort of go and see what the new buildings look like. Yeah, that's sort of it from my end.
Tēnā koe Huriwai. I also had the privilege of attending a pōhiri last week at Takapūwahia, and it was to acknowledge there are 3 new executives to ngā pirihimana o Aotearoa, but in particular the new commissioner. So it was a very powerful engagement with ngā pirihimana, iwi, not just from within the Confederation, for Ngāti Kahungunu all the way up to Te Wairoa. So yeah, that was a real privilege to be there last week. I just want to bring to our attention through Te Whakaminenga, which I think is most appropriate, and this is probably a little bit late, but nevertheless, I just want to acknowledge our whanaunga Jack Rikihana, who is currently the chair of our kaunihera kaumātua for Tatiawa ki Whakarongotai. But Jack was awarded the New Zealand Order of Merit, and it was for services to Māori, health governance and the community. So I think it's appropriate that Te Whakaminenga notes that, and we should consider what we might like to do to show our respect and honour for his acknowledgement. So I'll just ask that that's noted and recorded, and really I don't have any other iwi update at this point for today's week.
Just waiting. Just a couple of things that I wanted to just highlight. I wanted to acknowledge the passing of Sir John Trimmer last week. Such a pillar in our community, particularly in our arts community. Yeah, and just a beautiful, beautiful human being. And secondly, the opening of Toi Mahara. I know Korodon mentioned it in his introduction. Thank you for that acknowledgement, Korodon. I'd like to acknowledge Korodon and Nani June for their support over the years with everything Mahara, and also particularly Te Atiawa for opening up the whare kai at the marae for kai after the formal opening. It was just so great to be able to take people over there. Quite a lot of people who hadn't been there before, including somebody who's auditing the Indian High Commission. So he was absolutely thrilled to go there. And within Mahara, there's a really amazing exhibition, Whiriwhiria Tukua Ki Te Ao, Delane Bevan, Manu Bernard Kākik, and weavers from Te Wānanga and Toi Mataro. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful exhibition. And so, yeah, and just such a wonderful first exhibition to have in the community gallery too, acknowledging that long-standing relationship between the gallery and those 2 organisations in Otaki as well, and just bringing them into the space. So just fantastic. So, yeah, look forward to more things like that. And also taonga being able to be exhibited in the heritage space within there too, which is absolutely amazing. And also the possible connection between that gallery and the new library, which is coming so hard on the heels of actually the gallery being finished, and a real opportunity to connect the two spaces and have cultural expression that threads its way between one space and the other too. So just amazing. Congratulations to everybody who's been involved over 25 years or whatever it's been. Thank you.
Can I just say something? I was Ngāti Te Parata whānau was supposed to be someone to come upstairs and blessing all their tonga they put in there. And there was two other kai karakia didn't turn up, and it was quite hard. I had to get young Reuben Parata to do the blessing of his own tonga up in stairs, which he did well. Yeah, so it was a lot of pressure on it right from the beginning. But anyway, we got through it. We managed to get through with the occasion of that, the blessing up there. So, and had a big kai after and everything. But yeah, that was a bit. I was just a wee bit disappointed with that because yeah, we ended up. But I was glad the young boy got up and did the karakia for his own tonga, the paratas. Yeah.
I could see he was nervous, but he did a great job.
I was worn out after that. But anyway, kia ora.
Oh, can I just add one thing that I forgot to say? And that's to acknowledge Queenie Rikihana, because she was involved in that in Mahara for so long, and just endless effort that she's put in. And also Tracy Morgan for her cultural support, but also the beautiful, she's actually the star of the show in a way, because she's got her beautiful kind of artwork on the glass, and it throws these beautiful moving kind of shadows onto the wall. And then her weaving is in the gallery, and I wore her rapaki. So she was everywhere. Unfortunately not there on the day, but everywhere in spirit.
Kia ora tātou. Look, I really just wanted to keep it in front of us, Budge House. It's an important piece of work for us, and we are continuing to work with our partners, Greater Wellington, and of course Ngāti Tōrangatira and Atiawa. We're looking at a future date for our next hui. We are hoping it will be in November. We are just waiting to confirm some of the movements with Ngāti Tōrangatira. But they are certainly interested in the discussion with Greater Wellington to understand how we can find a good outcome. This is not something that is easy, otherwise it would have been put to bed by now. So I guess that sets the scene for us. We've got some good people involved, led by Chris, who are making sure that our concerns and our voice is heard, and likewise with iwi, there are some really good people at the table. So really just wanted to signal that it is an ongoing discussion and it is not something that we are forgetting about.
Tēnā koe, Darren. It was in my mind that perhaps this could satisfy item 11, that we have this on the agenda for our next week. But appreciate the work that's going on there. Obviously, there's conversations outside of council that I'm aware of. So just appreciate our staff's input and the community support that has been solicited alongside iwi and Crown agencies to progress this. So yeah, I'll just acknowledge what you're sharing with us, Darren. Thank you for the work that you're doing, Chris. It's acknowledged. With that, Are there any, item 8, are there any updates or any responses from our art representatives regarding treaty settlement matters? I don't have anything to add.
Oh, it's just a brief update that, yeah, we had a hearing week recently in Otaki, and then there's another one coming up before the end of the year, and then at least one more next year. Yeah. And then I think we might have mentioned before, then it's a long process to wait for a report, and then negotiations and settlements, number of years. Yeah. But, yep, work is proceeding.
Any update from you, Huriwai, in that space regarding treaty-related matters?
Carl, nothing for me to report back.
Oh boy. Good. I guess, yeah, just to qualify the program or the timetabling for the remainder of the year, hearing week 15 will be held from Monday the 27th of November to Friday the 1st. So it's I understand it's a very heavily populated timetable already. And what Kirsten's referred to is Chief Judge Fox has notified us that another hearing will be held in March. It will be hearing week 16, I think, I'm right. Will only be online, but that's because of the I guess the work that's been undertaken to provide particularly the tangata whenua briefs of evidence as a part of this current inquiry, the Rokawa phase of the inquiry. And then I think there's one further hearing week that has been set, which is predominantly technical witnesses. So the next hearing will be Monday 27 November through to Friday 1 December. Right. I'm satisfied I've got many ticks alongside 9 through to 9.5. I'm advised there's no correspondence, am I correct? Item 10, future agenda items, I suggest we look at perhaps an update on Budge House for our next week. That would be helpful. Are there any other agenda items that we should include at this point? All right.
Shall we have a long-term plan update at some stage?
So we'll add an update regarding our long-term plan process, and we'll put that onto our Arangi Take for our next week. Are there any other agenda items that we should include?
Yeah, sorry, just at some stage, the vision mahi that's happening. I'm not sure when the timing, when is the appropriate time for us to do that. So, yeah, Hara and Chris could work that out. Yeah.
Ko pau ngā kōrero? Are we running out of breath yet? Well, he hoa te toko ki a koe e te pāpā. Nau nei e tuku ngā whakamoimiti ki te atua, te kaihanga ngā mea katoa e te mutunga o tēnei wāhanga mō tātou. Nei rāta mihi kia o koutou, kua taitinana mai ki tēnei huihuinga, whāriki hia ngā kaupapa nunui o te kaunihera o te iwi hoki. Nei reira tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Thank you as well, Deanna, and thank you, Huriwai, for your attendance. Kia piki te ora kia koe e te ramutu. I hope you get well soon, Huriwai. Thank you for making yourself available, and thank you also, Deanna, for being available for our hui today. Appreciate it. Kia ora mai tātou.
Wātene, we helped out with the karakia. Yeah, so we got through with it. That was amazing. Let us pray. Kia taunga manaakitanga ki rone au tātou katoa. Kia hua i te mākihi kihi e ki ana. Kia toi te kupu, kia toi te reo. Kia toi te mauri, kia toi te wairua o ngā kōrero o kupu te mai. I roto i tēnei hui, i tēnei rā. Haumi e, hui e, tā e ki. May the blessings be upon all of us. And may the voice of the cicada always be heard saying, make sure they are huis. No. No. Make shorter make stronger the word, make stronger the language, make stronger the life force and the spirit of what has come out of the hui today. Bind us, join us, it will be done. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Oh, I didn't mean that.
So on Friday.